guys want to get some coffee or something?
Can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Even little kids in Mexico drink coffee.
Well, I'm not a little kid in Mexico, okay?
That is the best coffee I've ever tasted.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
You want a cup of coffee?
No coffee.
Coffee drinker, huh?
Maybe we can grab some coffee?
Coffee! Coffee!
God damn, Jimmy. This is some serious gourmet shit. Me and Vincent would have been satisfied with some freeze-dried Taster's Choice, right? And he springs this serious gourmet shit on us.
Good morning and welcome to Pop Culture Minefield Morning Coffee with me. My name is Christopher Moonlight, and today we are talking about Aliens Expanded with guest Robin Block, who will be joining us shortly, I think. Haven't heard from him yet, but he did say he would be coming on today. So we're just going to start talking about this great documentary about James Cameron's Aliens. I'm very excited about it. Before we talked about it on the show before, but now we have the producer all to ourselves, and we will have some other special guests. But let's get started with our panelists. First of all, we have Das Wolfen. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. And we have the rock to which we all crash against for our support, Martin. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, my friends. Good morning, chat.
Yes, good morning, chat. So who do we have so far? Not too many people, but as usual, it's just getting warmed up. So saying good morning to Monkey Jeebus, thank you, come again, D-Bud Martin, and of course, Penny. It's time for another Penny cartoon. Anima Confusa and Dragon Ruse. Thanks for all joining us. I think you're all Aliens fans. I know you guys are, right? I'm not wrong about that. Aliens fans? Yeah. It happens to be one of my favorite movies. It was a bit of an obsession when I was young, when I first saw it. Even before I saw it, I was, I think, 10 years old when it came out. And my parents didn't let me see rated R movies, but they went to the theater and my mom explained the whole movie. She told the story of Aliens to me and I was enthralled. So I definitely want to talk about that. I hope Robin comes on soon. We also may be expecting, like I said, he has a production meeting today, but he may join us when after that's done. Alec Gillis, who worked on Aliens with with Stan Winston. He worked for Stan Winston along with his partner, who he formed Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated, or better known as Studio ADI. They went on to do the special effects work on Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, the Alien vs. Predator movies, Prey, and a bunch of other great movies that don't have anything to do with that franchise. But I'm hoping he joins us. And we may also have Ridgetop from Aliens vs. Predator Galaxy as a special guest. But before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor today, which is Fuel Up. You may see the link, which is my link for Fuel Up. Are you ready to leave unproductive days and restless nights behind? Fuel Up has 3 different kinds: wake, play, and rest. It has different vitamins and minerals. My particular favorite is the wake. I use it for my workouts. It gives me energy. It's got a dose of caffeine in there, along with great vitamins and minerals. And of course, it is very important to stay hydrated, and those vitamins and minerals are fantastic. The only problem I have with Fuel Up is that I can't get enough of it, because once I got mine, my wife tried it, decided she loved it, and it kind of became like that Old Spice commercial where the wife keeps stealing the guy's body wash, except for me, every time I want to have my fuel up, A, I have to look for it, and B, I have to pray that it hasn't all been used up for my workouts. But it really is fantastic. Like I said, I can't recommend it enough for getting your day started, especially if you start out like me with a workout, lifting some weights, maybe going for a walk, that sort of thing. It really kind of brings that pleasant energy that you want when you're exercising. And not only that, I think the best part about it is there's no crash. You know, you may drink some like a different kind of canned energy drink or a bunch of caffeine, and you know, you're going good for a while, and then down you go, and then you want to take a nap, which is no good for me because my days last a long time. So Fuel Up is fantastic for that. I do highly recommend it, and I love the orange sherbet flavor that the Wake comes in. So on with the show. I hope Robin isn't having any trouble getting on. Matter of fact, while we're kind of talking, I just want to make sure. Yes, okay, yeah, he'll be on in 5, which is fantastic. So that's good. There we go. And also, by the way, for the people in the chat, I want to hear your aliens experiences. But now we welcome Robin Block. How are you doing, sir?
I'm really
Hey,
good.
Robin.
I need to turn down the volume a little bit so I can so my ears don't bleed. Guys, like I'm so sorry I'm a little bit late. Do you know do you know the movie Host that was on Shudder? The one
The
that's set
Host?
on a Zoom call.
No,
No.
I know what it is, but I know. I don't.
Okay, it was a like horror hit during the pandemic. I've just had a meeting with the guy that wrote that. He wrote Dash Cam, who's working with Sam Raimi at the moment. Brilliant guy. But it just our meeting just overran, and I just got a notification saying, "Oh, it's the podcast." I was like, "Shit!" So apologies for my poor timekeeping. I don't like.
That's
being late
all
for
right.
things.
We are really grateful to have you here, and especially knowing that you're a busy producer. We may actually, in the second hour, have Alec on as well, but he has a production meeting too. So, you know, the busy life of a producer, I get it, and I'm glad you took time out for us to talk about
Do you
this
know
film.
what? This week I've got 2 podcast interviews, and then, and normally it's the directors that do all of this, so it's very rare that I get asked to do anything because no one's really interested in speaking to me. So it's nice to be wanted. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I mean, the producer, first of all, for people who are kind of confused or don't know about a producer's role, if you want a film made, you have to find a producer that really cares about the material. Otherwise, I mean, they are every kind of support for the director. The director can't get his job done without the producer. And if the producer doesn't understand the material and isn't passionate about the material, you're essentially running up against a wall because you have to stop and explain everything to this producer. You might as well just be the producer yourself. What I want to know is, obviously, you've done, let's see, In Search of Tomorrow, In Search of Horror, 3 volumes, if I'm not
In Search
incorrect.
of Darkness, yeah, that
Search
just
of
released
Darkness,
part
sorry.
3. Yeah.
In Search of Darkness, yeah, and In Search of the Last Action Hero. Obviously, 80s horror and science fiction is, I mean, just judging by the length of these documentaries as well, I'm going to wager that the word obsession isn't too strong.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, what I grew up on those movies, like you both probably did, and Susie probably did. It's something that's part of our identity as film fans, and there's a huge audience for it. I actually got into this business because I was a fan of a YouTube channel that covered 80s and 90s movies. And whenever I watched the retrospectives, they really spoke to me. And it was like comfort food. And, In Search of the Last Action Hero was the first documentary that I crowdfunded with the guy that ran the YouTube channel. And it was just a fantastic experience. And off the back of that, I did In Search of Darkness, and that just took it to another level. I'm pretty sure In Search of Darkness is the most successful independent documentary series ever made at this point. It's done absolutely fantastic, and we want to continue that franchise. On In Search of Tomorrow, it was the highest grossing crowdfunded documentary ever made. There's a huge appetite for this, and we're moving away now from 80s into 90s. It's just film history, film nostalgia. There's a significant demand for that type of content, because I think collectively, most of us are film fans. If you're of a certain age, you were a teenager or a young teenager growing up through that period, and it was such an incredible time for creativity. And people like to look back, and remember the first time they saw something. And I think that's part of the appeal.
That's okay. So I watched not too long ago both In Search of the Last Action Hero and In Search of Tomorrow. I haven't yet checked out In Search of Darkness yet because I don't have Shudder, but
I'll send you some links.
Oh, excellent! I'm all in for that. Thank you. So the
I'll send you some links you can give out on your show as well if you tap me up afterwards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I believe Das Wolfen and Martin have both seen them. They have Shudder. I'm feuding with Shudder at the moment because they have Skinamarink and I have The Quantum Terror, and they're both $15,000 horror movies. So I feel like we have to fight over this. No, just kidding. I'm very happy for Skinamarink.
I think it's marketing genius, Skinamarink. I got 20 minutes in, and I'm a lover of independent horror, and I want to be entertained, and it just didn't speak to me. But the fact that it's so polarizing is amazing.
It's funny. There's a YouTuber that I really like called Super Eye Patch Wolf, and it was on his recommend list, and he said, what did he say? He said, I almost turned it off, and just before I turned it off, something happened, and then from there he loved it. But I think he said he was like over half an hour into it. And I'm like, I'm curious to check it out, but I'm certainly not someone who would want to make my audience wait half an hour for something to finally happen. I would find another way around it.
There must be real value in there for it to have created the kind of response. And I think that's what art should be about. And not everything needs to satisfy me. Like the guy that I've just had a coffee with made a film that scared the hell out of me. There's that Host and Paranormal Activity that really, affected me. And we were talking about Skinner literally just now. And that's the thing. Like a lot of this stuff's subjective. In my job, my job is to take subjectivity out of it. Is to really sort of figure out what an audience wants. And it's harder with the stuff I do because I need to pay up front for it. I'm really encouraged though, even like you said, if something doesn't click with you, just the fact that people are taking chances. I mean, even this may be kind of a difficult thing for people to understand now, but Star Wars, the original Star Wars, took so many chances, not just with the special effects, but with the storytelling style. Just the idea of starting a movie with two kind of comedic androids and following them for the first 20 minutes of the story without really explaining to the audience what's going to happen next. And then continually having the movie kind of told through their point of view, with their commentary. Because it was such a huge blockbuster and so many movies imitated it, which is something I kind of want to talk about and relates to how James Cameron got his start. And again, why I'm hoping Alec can join us, because he can really speak to this, because he was with James Cameron before James Cameron was James Cameron. He was always James Cameron, even in the sense of what he did, but you know what I mean. But one of the things that I really loved about In Search of Tomorrow
And In Search of the Last Action Hero also did this, and I think this is a really great thing about your documentaries. First of all, I think we discussed before that a lot of fans of these things are people who are always looking for those, when DVDs were new and you could get all these behind the scenes. We were always hungry for whatever making of content, whether it be interviews with the special effects department or the director or the producer, talking about, the act of getting your hands dirty and creating this stuff and what was motivating them. And I really loved that, especially about, like I said, In Search of the Last Action Hero was fun because it was a lot of stunt people and action heroes and things that I don't really think about as much because I'm more of a special effects guy. But there was one part of In Search of Tomorrow that really, it was a revelation for me. And I learned so much watching that movie. But one of the things that I really loved was they were talking about Back to the Future. And you interviewed the person who did the score and said, and they were talking about how their job was to make the movie seem more epic than it ever really had a right to be. And suddenly I realized, holy crap. And I'm trying not to curse because we're on KGRA today, digital radio. And we don't want to get ganked by YouTube, but I realized Back to the Future only has 3 action scenes, and they're all very contained. One in a parking lot, one in the Universal Studios kind of town square set, and one at the end, which is also in the same town square set. And it's usually just between a few, the first one is with Doc and Marty and a few terrorists. The last one is just Doc and Marty. And then the other is, this really kind of neat scene where it's all about the action is driven by the fact that he's using a skateboard, which nobody had seen before in the 50s. And other than that, it's people talking in backyards, people talking in rooms, people talking in schools. Even the whole action scene with the Marty playing the guitar, it's not really an action scene, but it's, the tension scene, is he going to vanish out of existence? It's all just actors in rooms. And you just add these 3 little action scenes, and then you get this epic score that makes, even as a kid, I realized, when I saw that movie as a kid, I just thought it was fantastic. And now I realize it was the score making me think I was watching this huge, high concept science fiction movie. It was just actors in rooms, but it made it all come alive. And I just thought that is really what I want out of my film documentaries. It's not just nostalgia. It's teaching us why these things worked. And the last time when you came on kind of impromptu, last time we were kind of wondering, why aren't the movies hitting like they did in the past? Why aren't we feeling as strongly about them? Why isn't there as big of a cultural
That's a really good question. For probably a lot of different reasons. We're in a different era of cinema. There's different commercial drivers. The whole entertainment landscape has changed, and I don't honestly think unless you're a prestige director, you get the same freedom and the same. The 80s, there'll never be an era like it. It was complex. The amount of and someone's written because you're older and jaded. That's actually true, because we're not. Who's to say? I've got 2 young daughters. And when they watch stuff that they love, they're experiencing it at that time that they're going to love it. And eventually what they're experiencing, they'll be like us, going, oh, God, I wish stuff was as good as when I was a kid. The nostalgia is evergreen, right? So we will always have those eras to go back to. I think it's not fair to compare how we felt about those films when they came out to where we are now, because we're different. We are jaded. We have had that life experience. We have had our sensibilities affected. You need to try really hard to impress us. But when you're 12, 13, 14, or younger, your mind is impressionable. In Search of Darkness came about because I just found, I was in my late 30s and I just found myself gravitating towards VHS covering of all the craziest things. I remember buying this coffee table book, which was filled with just scans of VHS covers.
I want that coffee
it-
table book.
Yeah, to make the do designs, right? And it's just the guy that put it together. And it's just, I mean, it's one of my prized possessions because you just look into it, it's like delving into an 80s video store and the aesthetic. And I didn't understand that it was such a signal that, and In Search of Darkness happened purely because I responded to that signal. And I've never had that experience where something's just blown up, like crowdfunding blew up. It went from an idea in my notebook in July 2018 to a Hollywood premiere in October 2019. And that whole experience changed my life. And that's why you've got to pay attention to the infinite. You know, you like if your curiosity is drawn to things, it's not by accident. And that nostalgia is such a strong tractable like feeling for me. And what In Search of Darkness has become is this massive comfort blanket where people just have it on because it's just nostalgical. It's just like, do you remember this movie? This movie had this stuff going. Like it's just for hours, and it's like all the best people in the world talking about 80s horror, all the people that made it, all the people that were there. And that's what it is. It's like it's a very specific layered piece of entertainment that's designed to honestly just make you feel good. To almost be like time travel to take you back to when this was the first time you experienced this kind of stuff. And that's what's so powerful about nostalgia.
I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate to that, just a little bit, about the jaded comment. One, I just took my daughter to see Megan last weekend, and we both thoroughly enjoyed it. I really felt, and I said this on the last show, it did something that a new movie hasn't done for me in a long time, and that it made me think about it for days after. I kept thinking about the movie. So I don't think I've entered into the realm of being old and not liking anything new. I think when a movie does well, I definitely want to see it. The other thing, just in general, is, well, 2 points. One, in terms of In Search of Tomorrow, there are actually some movies on there that I still have not seen. And
which ones?
What was it? The Michael Crichton one with Tom Selleck comes to mind, with Gene Simmons.
Oh, Runway.
Oh,
Runaway.
Yeah. I haven't seen that, and I wanted to. After watching it, I was like, "Yeah, that looks like one I want to check out." Like I said, what really, and maybe it's because I'm a filmmaker and I'm curious. Like I said, we really got into the mechanisms of why things hit, why they worked. And that for me was very important. I just want to point out that both my daughters, especially my younger daughter, actually, who's 11 years old, all on her own, and I promise you, I haven't been one of these people that's trying to indoctrinate my children into liking older stuff, but she's become curious about different things. It was through Stranger Things, which again, I'm actually a fan of. She started asking about the 80s and I showed her Goonies. She wasn't interested in Goonies.
The Goonies is so hardcore.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got a 7-year-old, well, nearly 7-year-old daughter. She'll be 7 in April, and we tried to watch the Goonies a couple of months ago. And I'm like, I'm gonna need to turn this off because it's got lots of bad language. There's like dead bodies with like hole in the head from getting shot. Like it's terrifying. And she was like, "Daddy, I don't like this." And I'm like, well, I'm a bad parent because it's not how I remember. And everything, all the kids are swearing left. Like it's just like it's everything's so much watered down now, and you really see it in that contrast. I don't mean to interrupt, but like the Goonies, it just made me chuckle.
Yeah, I remember going to the theater to see Goonies with my mom and my grandparents. And I kind of remember the look of horror on my grandparents' faces, like, how bad the kids were. But that wasn't the reason that she just glazed over. She didn't, because I think she wanted Stranger Things, but now, get this, here are her favorite movies to put on repeat: Back to the Future, Clue, and Misery. She loves Misery. She won't watch the ankle bashing scene. You know,
I was just I can't watch it. Yeah, I can't. I mean, I'm excited because we're going to be doing 90s horror. We're developing that at the moment, and begin rolling it out at the end of this year. And obviously, Misery is one of the stalwarts of 90s horror.
Say that again. You kind of garbled a little bit. What?
We're going to be doing 90s horror. Towards the end of this year, we're starting to develop In Search of Darkness, but from 1990s.
Okay.
And Misery will be one of the titles that we look at. But you know, that's an amazing film, and I understand. Like, I can't watch it anymore because it's a bit too graphic.
Yeah, I mean, it's James Caan. Kathy Bates was not a celebrity then. She'd done some stuff. I think she did Fried Green Tomatoes. According to Greg Nicotero, who did that gag, she came to visit their shop, and so they could show it, and she knew all the stuff. She was like quoting Crop Top from Texas Chainsaw 2 and all. She was a fan. But that again is another example. That movie is essentially two people in a room for the most part. There's a subplot with the old sheriff and his wife, but even they're just kind of in a little cabin office and on roads and that sort of thing. There's really, you know, I can't imagine that anything in that movie was more expensive than James Caan's fee. But my daughter absolutely loves it. She loves Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes. She loves that character. And it's funny, it's very tame. You can show it to a kid. There's only a little bit of cussing in it. You know, even Kathy Bates makes her not wanting to cuss kind of terrifying, and you know, like, you cock-a-doodie or you dirty bird.
Yeah, dirty bird.
You know, so she's a memorable character, and that's I can't wait to see what the commentary you guys bring to that particular movie is. I'm sure there's also, you know, Silence of the Lambs is another one.
Yeah, it's where horror turns into kind of premium thrillers. So Silence of the Lambs, Seven. There's there's so many films in the 90s that aren't considered horror, that actually have so many horror elements in them that they are that from this perspective in 2023 we can look back and say, yeah, that we can look at that as a horror movie.
I should do a live stream just on Silence of the Lambs. That's one of my favorite movies, and it's a big influence on my own filmmaking. I actually stole a lot of cinematography and editing moves from Silence of the Lambs for my own movie, and I think it upped the quality of my film by doing that. This was it. Talent borrows, genius steals. So I'm a genius for stealing from that movie. Anyway, so they're fantastic documentaries. You know, and it's very interesting to think about these things. Like I said, especially being a father now and reflecting on it. I don't know where I Love Lucy factors into that. My daughter's also obsessed with I Love Lucy. So who thought I would have a preteen that would be obsessed with 1950s television? So I think these days, what we're starting to kind of learn is, and you know, of course, the mentality and the way that, you know, we speak and dress and all that sort of thing changes. But I think at a certain point, movies and television reached a certain point in technology where they can. It's not like when we, you know, our grandparents wanted us to watch, you know, some film noir or something like that, or Wizard of Oz, where we look at it and go like, oh yeah, that's old. You know, it's good, but it's old. Now we've reached a certain level of quality where things can be a bit more timeless. We can be nostalgic about them, but new generations can see the quality and merit in them as well. And I certainly see this reflected in a lot of the aspiring special effects artists, the young special effects artists I know. They're all gravitating towards, and not that they're not using technology. I mean, I'm learning CGI, but what I'm learning about CGI is it is very procedural. There's literally, things that they call procedural. These are the procedurals in creating this monster, this, crumbling building or whatever, where even the young people, they want to get their hands dirty and they want to get into the they want to build a miniature, they want to, and they want to build someone's chest bursting open. I got a message the other day from someone who was a contestant on Face Off who said, hey, I'm building this chest where it opens up, how do I rig it? And I gave him a few different options of how I've known it to be done, and he was really excited about that, and he had a client that was very excited about that. So I think that there's the artistry is kind of drawing people from every generation in. So, and I admit there is definitely there is nostalgia, and there are people who are jaded, and I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of either of those things, but there is kind of a playfulness. It's like, you're making a film, you want to go out to play, you want to play with these toys, these wonderful things. I'm wondering about you, of all the movies, Aliens, what was it? You've done, like I said, action heroes, sci-fi, horror, but what is it about a specific movie? This is the first time, as far as I know, that you're doing a specific movie where everything's dedicated to it. What drew you towards this movie in particular to make a documentary?
Well, for me personally, I have to be into what I'm doing in order to solve all the problems that inevitably come with making anything. But Aliens is a perfect movie. It's a perfect movie, and it has so much layers, so many layers, so much depth, so much cinematic brilliance, where we now in 2023 can go back and revisit it and deconstruct it. So this isn't a making of. This is, imagine the film with three-dimensional timeline, and we're going in and deconstructing the most iconic scenes and looking at them and bringing the fans in to talk about the stuff they want to most understand and learn about and re-experience. And our promise to our backers is, once you watch Aliens Expanded, the first thing we do will be going and watching Aliens again, and it'll be like a different movie to us. So, and also commercially, I wanted, the In Search Of documentaries. It's a franchise now. We're covering 90s. We're doing a sequel to In Search Of Tomorrow this year. That will roll on and roll on. So I wanted to have something new where I could explore a specific movie and live within the world of that film. And that's what this is. And we've been very transparent with backers. We've taken our idea to backers before they were even backers and said, look, here's our concept, rip it apart. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. And we've just done that again. We just released a video a couple of weeks ago where we talked about how we've changed the synopsis of the documentary based on feedback from backers. And so what I'm trying to develop is a new documentary format that brings the fans together to explore something in a way which is bespoke to that audience. That's all this is.
Oh, that's all. I mean, it seems like a huge undertaking. Is this going to be another 5-hour documentary like In Search of Tomorrow?
No, it won't be two. No. We're gonna. I think it will come in at about 3.5, which is long. I mean, the reality is that I don't really do 5-hour documentaries because they can collapse under the weight of their own gravity. They're a bit too long. In Search of Darkness, the format really allows for it. And In Search of Tomorrow does as well, but it's getting harder to make those kind of runtimes happen. And actually, because Aliens, we're dealing with one entity, it's not open-ended. Like, this is the film, these are the areas we're going to look at. It's all very precise. If you're on the page, if you go to the updates page, the updates at the top, you'll see everything that's been going on. And, so the updates tab, you can see this is our last backer event that we did on Sunday. If you scroll down, you'll see some of the most recent interviews. And if you scroll down a bit more, you'll see, the survey feedback. That's the director, Ian Nathan. In that video, we talk about all the changes we've made from listening to our backers. So this is Aliens Expanded is a very intimate experience for super fans, and our aim and our goal is that if you've backed Aliens Expanded, you will be forever linked with this universe. You as an individual. You get a certificate of contribution, you get your name and credits, and you get the opportunity to shape the direction of the production.
You've got.
And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've known throughout the years. So when I got to work at Studio ADI, that was after Harbinger Down, which was a film that was kind of an homage to the Aliens franchise, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that if Alec joins us. But that movie was backed by people who wanted to see more of the practical effects and the more of the spirit of what started with movies like Aliens. And even further back, Alien came out, and then we had let's see, I'll hide this. We had movies like Galaxy of Terror, Forbidden World. Roger Corman was doing a lot of knockoffs, and there were Italian knockoffs and that sort of thing. And a lot of the people who worked on Aliens got their start with the knockoffs, like James Cameron himself. And so this is a movie in my mind that was made by fans that, even though the internet wasn't going on back then, like fans like who you're having in your documentary, people who went, I want to do that as well, and they're embracing new technologies and figuring out ways to get it done. But I'm noticing, I mean, you're getting a lot of the cast and the crew in here with the fans. And like I said, even after working on Harbinger Down and getting to work at Studio ADI, my job then was director of social media. And so I was bringing in a lot of people from like Aliens versus Predator Galaxy and Perfect Organism podcast who are part of your documentary.
Yeah.
And just Alec wanted to interact with them, not just for, promoting his company, but just as a way of going like, I'm a fan too. I love this stuff. Come to the shop, see our showroom, our displays. I don't know if you ever got to come to America and see that showroom.
No. I mean, the thing that I went to on Hollywood Boulevard was Icons of Darkness. I don't know if you've been there.
I haven't been to that one.
It's really good. It's really good. I like those guys. Yeah,
they did a show there at the Hollywood Museum where essentially they moved their showroom into there and made it look nice and turned it into a party. But that experience of being in that showroom, to them, Alex said, well, it's kind of like the furniture. You kind of start to ignore it after a while, and it's like, you get angry that you have to dust it. But to anyone else going in there, and I know Alec was being a little, I'd say deliberately jaded, because when I would bring in people to that showroom after I had had my own experience of going into there for the first time and being bowled over and just so happy to be there, every time he would do that, he would, I mean, even like, people would be walking, on their walks, on their breaks and stuff, and there'd be someone from another building that he'd know is a fan, and he, that person would be with a few other people and be like, hey, how you doing? And it's like, hey, you want to come inside and see this thing, and see everyone just light up.
It's amazing. I mean, like that's why we did it with that film, because there are certain films which are timeless. I think The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, is a timeless film. I think Predator, John McTiernan, is a timeless film. And these films will play and play and play, right? And when I look at potential candidates for an expanded kind of documentary, you've got to start with the fan base. Does it have a big enough and dedicated enough fan base that just can't get enough? Because our projects, all they are is fandom with purpose.
Speaking of fans, by the way, just want to welcome to the chat as well Shinosky, who is in the chat, and also I don't know, I haven't been keeping an eye on the general chat, but Martin is. If anyone wants to ask a question or make a comment of something that we want, just like with Aliens Expanded, we want to hear from you. We want to, we've got stories. You recently did something as well. On your social media, you asked people to tell their story of their first experience with aliens and tag you on it.
So that, as we evolve what these documentaries and the experience that we're trying to create for backers, as that iterates and evolves, we want our projects, and I think I mentioned this earlier, to be bridges between us as fans and the work. And I feel like, this isn't something that a lot of people are going to watch on digital. This is like a physical piece of merchandising. And we want our backers to be part of it. So when we go out on social media and we ask people to share their experiences, it's a way to kind of make their own presence felt within this whole kind of aliens universe. And it's so interesting because for a lot of people, it was such a visceral experience watching it. Every aliens fan has a story about the first time they watched it. And remember the build up to it, watching it, how they felt afterwards. I remember I've got a story, you've got a story. It's just one of those things that is imprinted on us. And that's what's magical about it. And you can't say that for every film, And I think that's, as we further move into how can we create a film and an experience that's personal, as in like this matters to you as a backer. This is something that you want to be part of. We have to explore the reflection of a film, and that is how the fans feel about it, how it changed people's lives. It's not something we're going to look at in the documentary itself, but it is something that surrounds it.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about this is it's not just a documentary. It's a whole kind of a phenomena that you get to. I almost imagine it like the documentary is a planet, and all these things that you're doing are kind of like a ring or satellites going around.
We treat it with real respect. Not just for the source material, but primarily, because we've been interviewing a few actors from the film itself, which is a great honour. I don't want to get it twisted. This is not a making of. This is a rediscovery. This is about reminding you why you love this movie in the first place, and giving you something that you haven't been given, and doing it with other people that feel the same way you do. So I kind of look at what I do and I go, it's not in the film industry, and we're not in the TV industry. I think we're in our own little niche. And that's the thing that I want to get better and better at. I want to deliver more bespoke experiences for our backers that are kind of really tuned into the nerdy stuff they're into, and I'm into.
What was your memorable experience with Aliens? What was your first experience watching it, or was there a build up for you?
Yeah, it was. I was with my dad, and I was 12 years old, and we rented it from Blockbuster in southeast London, and I watched it with my dad, and I couldn't sleep that night. It was just like my tiny brain couldn't quite comprehend. And by the way, I think 12 years old is the perfect age for watching Aliens, right? And it just stayed with me. And it's funny because I watched it again, obviously, like a couple of months ago, and I'm 45 now. I first watched it when I was 12. And every time I watch it, I'm different and the film's different. And I see new things and I appreciate new things. And that's the sign of a great piece of art, is that it evolves as you evolve. It has that continuity. So I still understand what I loved about it when I was 12 and how shocking it was to me, how visceral. But now I appreciate things, moments, shadows, lighting, sound, score, dialogue, like the lucky accidents that happen on set. It's a nuanced process, and there's not every film can deliver that. But Aliens does.
I noticed that my wife has a different reaction to it now as to when the first time we watched it together, because now, well, even me as well, but as parents, you start to realize, I mean, to me, Aliens now is safe because I've seen it enough times where I know what's going to happen. But I imagine a parent seeing it for the first time would have a very visceral reaction to essentially, that compulsion to protect your child, or to protect a child. And one of the things that I really thought about in that terms is, in the original Alien, the xenomorph, which there's arguments whether it's called a xenomorph or it just got tagged with that label because of Gorman, but it's symbolically it's a sexual threat. And to suddenly, to have adults have to contend with that, it's essentially doing a combination of rape and murder at the same time, and defiling you pretty much inside and out every which way. And then suddenly to realize that this thing has no qualms about attacking a children, it has no moral center. And suddenly it's not just about surviving, it's about protecting innocence from this. It's not just the threat of death or the child being taken away. It's the horrendous implications that come with
I think we
what.
should interview you. Like, it's
What's
funny
that?
because I think we should interview you. Like, the way you talk about it. Like, this is the thing, right? Because absolutely, on an analytical level, everything you've said is absolutely correct. And it's so layered, and you can go deep into that subtext and the connotations and everything. But sometimes things just scare us, and we don't know why. Right? And then when you get older, you start to understand why it was so scary. And you just said elements of why it's so mind blowing. But all I remember, you know,
It's you almost, the general audience, as a filmmaker I think about these things, as a writer I think about these things, but you almost don't want the audience to think about it too much, because a good scare is subliminal or it's intuitive. You don't have to explain to the audience what the threat is. They intuitively get it and they're not thinking about it and they're in the moment. So I think, documentaries like this for the hardcore fans are fascinating. But if you're just what I refer to as a normie going to see a movie, you don't want to start talking about how you pulled the sleight of hand or how you emotionally manipulated them. You just want to have that moment of, when you look over, even like I said with Goonies, I look over at my grandparents and they're like, should our kid be watching this? That whatever that reaction is, you're kind of pushing those little buttons that are giving them those little emotions and feelings of unease. And I think there's almost a responsibility to as well to and leave Shinosky's comment up because I want to address that. There's these you have a responsibility not to do it too much to your audience, not to hurt them too much or scare them too badly where they're turned off and they're like, no, I've had enough of this. You want to bring them just up to the point where they think that they can't take it anymore. And then, like a roller coaster, bring them back down and put them into an area where they can have a moment to think about it, consider it, contemplate it, and then rev them back up again. Because I see other filmmakers pushing those buttons too hard. And there have been movies I've turned off, not because they're bad, but they're just, it's too much,
Yeah, it's funny if you catch aliens on TV, you can't stop watching it. Like it doesn't matter where in the movie you accidentally click onto it, you have to carry on. It's just it speaks to the genius, and I think we can call him that. He's probably the most successful artist in history, James Cameron.
I remember going to, sorry to interrupt, but I remember me and another guy were waiting for this girl to come out. We were at her house, and she was getting ready. We were going to go to a club. This was, of course, like when I was in my 20s. And we're just watching TV, flipping the channels. And Aliens comes on, and we're like, oh, great movie. And we start watching it. And she comes out all dressed up, ready to go. And we're just watching Aliens. She's like, so are we going out? And we're like, oh, yeah. Sorry, we're going out. Like, it does. You're absolutely right. So Shinosky says, check out Rob Ager's work on Alien and Aliens. He goes into psychological aspects, birthing terms, and rape themes. Did you reach out to Rob Ager perchance? Because he's famous. I know he's famous
for this, right? Yeah. So Rob's channel, and I corresponded with Rob a few times a few years ago. Rob's a great guy on his YouTube channel, but he's probably not the right fit for this project. But we do have other eminent speakers talking about things, that are reminiscent of what Rob. I think YouTube's great, right? YouTube's amazing. In my job, you have to be quite careful with having too many YouTube creators in a project, honestly, and it's because it can devalue a project if you're not careful. Even if they speak, even if you love their channels. So our kind of key YouTube face and the face of the fan is Derek Defoe, who runs Alien Theory, which is by far the largest aliens. Phenomenal guy, absolutely brilliant, and we'll be filming with him in the next month or so. But I love Rob's work. I love Rob's work on all sorts of stuff, not just Aliens, like The Shining, and he genuinely has really interesting takes, and a great YouTube creator. But with our kind of work, you need to have stuff that works great on a retrospective doesn't always translate on screen as a talking head.
No, I understand exactly what you mean, because I watched that. I forget the name of it. It was a documentary on The Shining, and it was
Room 237.
Yeah, and it was essentially it was entertaining, but it got off into the weeds.
Yeah, I love Room 237, and Room 237 inspired the expanded format. Room 237 is wild purely because the fandom around The Shining is reflective of that, like the underbelly of the fandom around The Shining, like the whispers on Reddit, the theories. That there's an element of that within Aliens Expanded, but that's the center of Room 237. If you haven't seen that documentary, The Shining is probably my all-time favorite movie. It's a wonderful watch because you're like, how are people making these connections? Like, they are out there. Do you know that I've got a bit of trivia? The Kubrick Foundation did not want Room 237 to go ahead. Room 237, because you don't see any talking heads, it's just audio.
Yeah.
It contains 35% of the sound. How cool is that?
It's a fun one. I enjoy stuff like that. What I love about the Aliens fandom, and you mentioned Aliens Theory, and we're gonna take a commercial break in just a couple of minutes here, and I hope you can still stay with us. But Alien Theory, really, he doesn't just analyze. He takes you into the lore, and he even goes so far to perform the old comic books for you. Like, he'll scan all the comic books, and he'll not just read the captions, but act them out and do other videos giving you
brilliant.
context.
The Perfect Organism guys are amazing as well. There is something about this fandom. Like, I was with them all on Sunday night. We had an advisor circle meeting for our partners, and they're just such a great bunch of people, right? And they're they kind of self-identify with the Aliens universe in a very healthy way. Like, this is not unhealthy fandom. This is very positive, and they're all creators. They're either running Facebook pages or running YouTube channels or podcasts, just like yourself, actually.
Yeah,
There's something about harnessing that fandom that is just really fun to deal with.
it's incredible because, I mean, for me, the job isn't so hard because we do different topics all the time. But for them, I mean, just hours upon hours of content, all continuing to keep it fresh, all just around this single franchise and idea, and they keep finding ways to explore the essentially infinity of aspects of this franchise that was born out of not just one person, but just took on a life of its own through other people.
I'm sorry. This was the one
He was going for our cue to commercial break.
Guys, I'm going to have to run, unfortunately, because I've got a 5 p.m. hard
well,
stop.
thank you so much for joining us then, but we will continue to be in touch, and we'll shill this website for you, Aliens Expanded, which they can still you can still contribute to and get all these wonderful perks.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, and by the way, you must speak to Ian. Ian, he'll just be. He will be so lyrical about this film. He's written Alien Vault. He's just published a book about James Cameron. We need to hook you up with Ian, who's directing this. He literally just finished interviewing Alec like a few days ago. Yeah, so Alec's in the documentary as well. But you know what? It's always brilliant to be invited on. You guys are the real deal, and thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you.
Hit me up about those codes. I'll send you a bunch of codes you can share with the audience, and keep flying the flag for fandom, okay?
We sure will. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be back with more about Aliens Expanded after this commercial break. Cheers.
Take care, guys.
Hi, guys. This is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
A birthday without her mom. An anniversary without her husband. Her wedding day without her dad. These are the days when military families feel it most of all. The loss of their soldier, their sailor, their airman, their Marine, their Coast Guardsman. Families never forget their loved ones lost to war or illness or suicide. Families never forget, and neither do we. We are TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. We provide resources, support, and comfort to heal the hearts and meet the needs of grieving military families, all at no cost to them. Your generosity can make an enormous difference in the lives of the families of our fallen military heroes. Our military families need to know they are not alone and they are not forgotten. Show them your support at taps.org.
Facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh wow, we survived. Welcome back from the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA.
All right. Welcome back to our Aliens Expanded episode of Morning Coffee, Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA. My name is Christopher Moonlight, here with Das Wolfen and Martin. Want to say thank you again to Robin Block, producer of Aliens Expanded. We've been having a really great conversation, and I'll once again bring up, this is Aliens Expanded. You still have time. It's www.aliens-expanded.com, and they have all of these great perks. You can get the digital experience. You can get the Blu-ray package, which I'm probably going to go in for at some point, being the Alien superfan that I am. I'm hoping that at some point we will be joined by Ridgetop from Aliens versus Predator Galaxy. He said he would try and hop in. Or Alec Gillis, who, if his production meeting ends early, he might be able to pop in as well. I'm not sure if I should play this. We played this before, but it goes on a little long. But it's just the trailer about what
It's
Aliens
4 minutes, I think.
4 minutes, yeah. So we won't do that. And like I said, I don't want to do something that accidentally gets us a copyright strike, since YouTube's bots seem to be ganking us pretty regularly right now. So don't want to risk it. But it's really cool. I'm very excited about it. Did you guys get a chance to watch In Search of Tomorrow?
I've watched part of it. It's 5
hours.
Long. Yeah, it's long. So I've watched part of it. I haven't, like I said, it's not something you can really sit down and watch in one sitting.
Oh no, I put it on. I have a habit of putting on stuff and falling asleep in front of the TV at night. That's kind of how I fall asleep. And it invariably, I think, took me 6, 7, maybe 8 days to watch in its entirety. Absolutely fascinating. I wasn't falling asleep because I was bored. I was just falling asleep because it was the end of the day. Glass of wine, you enjoy that stuff. But I also put it on kind of repeat while I'm doing chores, cleaning the house, working on my stuff. It's great that way. And like I said, there's all sorts of insight into the different aspects of the show. In Search of the Last Action Hero was very entertaining, talking to different martial arts people, stunt people, talking about movies, sometimes movies that you don't think about all the work that goes into them. And that's kind of the wonderful thing about these documentaries. I love their segment on Conan the Destroyer, talking about the different people that they had working on that, or the different, all the different martial artists and stunt people that you wouldn't, unless you really dug, know who they were and what they contributed. But you realize that their work, and the influence their work has had on movies throughout. This is very exciting, though. I am going to be a contributor when I get some money. This one is definitely worth it. I don't have a lot of money, so contributing to different crowdfunders is not always in the cards for me, but this one is special. I'm very excited about it. Let's see. Deleted Scenes is here. It says, "Hail to everyone. Sorry I couldn't join you live. The Alien films, especially the first two, number among my favorites. I'm looking forward to the doc with breathless anticipation." I definitely am as well. I have the box set, and I even watched the behind the scenes to the movies, the sequels that I didn't like, just because I love seeing stuff being constructed. I even like hearing the horror stories. Alien 3 has a lot of horror stories, a lot of unhappy cast and crew. Alien Resurrection, that's an interesting one, because there's some great things being done within that movie in terms of, the technical special effects aspects. There's a big segment on the water tank. But that the movie isn't really as good as the others when they've got to do a whole segment on how Sigourney Weaver did a behind the back basketball shot. Impressive, but not really what we showed up for. Aliens has it. And James Cameron, like I said, I'm hoping Alec will show up. but I'm not counting on it. So I'm going to go ahead and tell his story. Alec Gillis is kind of the guy who opened the door for James Cameron to come in and be what he became. Alec was, I think, originally from Arizona, and he came to California to work in movies. He got a job at New World Pictures, which was Roger Corman's studio. And this was at a time where Star Wars and Alien had come out. And Roger Corman kind of said, hey, there seems to be an audience for this stuff. And I know how to do movies like this faster and cheaper. They may not be as good, but working for Roger Corman was kind of a film school in itself. As we've talked before on other shows, and Dust Wolf, and you know this for sure, you know, I mean, you can't count on all your fingers and toes all the actors and directors, famous actors and directors that got their start with him. I mean,
Oh yeah.
You know, actors most notably is Jack Nicholson, who met Roger Corman in a acting class. Roger decided, I think, that he needed to take some acting classes to help him work better with actors, and Jack Nicholson was in there, and he kind of went, hey Jack, why don't you come act for me in some of these low budget films. Was that Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese? I know I'm missing some big names here. Joe Dante, right? He was with Roger Corman to start.
Yeah, there's a whole list of actors and filmmakers and technical people that come out of what they lovingly refer to as the Roger Corman Film School.
Yeah, which was never a film school. It was just, you know, trial by fire, essentially. Roger Corman didn't pay you very much, sometimes not at all. He didn't have much money. The scripts were written on a weekend. Little Shop of Horrors was shot in 2 days. They did give them 3 days to rehearse. That was the caveat, was essentially, hey, we've got this location, you got 3 days to rehearse it. So they had their lines down. But Alec, I believe, had a portfolio. He was doing some, you know, monster makeup and that sort of thing, and got little jobs here and there in different shops. And then he got an opportunity to interview, if I'm telling the story correctly, and hopefully Alec can correct me. He thought to himself, hey, he was doing these little jobs, and somebody said, hey, you should meet my friend, James Cameron. He just did a short film and he's screening it at this little theater. You should go down there and introduce yourself to him. And it was a screening of Xenogenesis, which you can find on YouTube. As far as I know, last time I looked, it was on YouTube. And it kind of, even then, had all the seeds for aliens in it. It had a power loader type of thing. It had an alien. It had a lot of the tricks, the rear projection tricks that he was experimenting with. And so they became friends. And I think James Cameron was a truck driver at the time. And so when Alec got the opportunity to work for or to interview at New World Pictures, he thought, well, maybe my portfolio isn't strong enough to get a job, but maybe if I bring someone else with me, you know, we can both get hired together. So he brought James Cameron with him. And I think they did both get jobs in the model shop at New World Picture, working on Battle Beyond the Stars.
Beyond the Stars.
Yeah. And I guess the special effects, the head of special effects there wasn't quite up to speed. He like kind of lied on his resume about what he could do, what he could deliver on. And Roger Corman had a assistant at the time who was had interviewed to get the job, and her name was Gail Ann Hurd. And so she, I guess she interviewed with Roger Corman. She was just looking for a job. And Roger Corman in the interview asked her, hey, what do you see yourself being in like 5 years? And she said, well, I think I want to be a producer. She says in interviews at the time, she didn't even know what a producer did. She just wanted a job. And so she just made up stuff on the spot. So he said, okay. So she became his assistant. And Roger Corman said, hey, things are kind of behind in the model shop and the special effects, and we're not getting shots that look good. Can you go down there and see what's going on? See what we can do to kind of pick up the pace. And so she went down there, and James Cameron met her, and he kind of jumped in front of her, I guess, knowing that she was there for Roger. And he just started taking her on a tour of the model shop and going like, hey, this is what we're working on. This is how it's going to work, that sort of thing. And she was really impressed. She thought he was the head of special effects. And he said, no, I'm just a guy working here. I guess they couldn't even find the guy in charge of doing the special effects. So she went back and reported all this to Roger Corman, who promptly fired the head of special effects, and put James Cameron in charge. So James Cameron started delivering these really great shots because he really was, even at that time, a genius, figuring out how to make these things work on a budget. So, and again, Alec was there with him at the time. They then, after that movie, I think they reused some shots to do some stuff like Forbidden World, which was not Forbidden Planet, kind of an Alien knockoff. And they kind of recycled the sets and did some things. And then they went and did a show called Galaxy of Terror, which James Cameron, I'll quote him, he said, which was a paean, to be charitable, to Alien. And James Cameron got to work with the Skotek brothers and Alec and experiment with rear projection and essentially kind of use that movie as testing grounds for all the techniques he was going to use to do Aliens. That wasn't the plan at the time. He didn't know at that moment that he was going to do Aliens. But he did a lot of, like I said, the rear projection, a lot of miniature work. They took the sets from Battle Beyond the Stars and turned them upside down, and then that became the ships for Galaxy of Terror. They had like some cheap little tricks. Somebody falling down a chasm was actually somebody just dropping a G.I. Joe toy down a miniature. But they did a lot of bold stuff in there. And really, again, the movie looks better than it has any right to on that particular budget. Is it a good movie? It is in terms of what it is, but it's not something that, if I put it in front of someone and said, you've got to see this movie, that they were going to come back to, like Aliens, and say, oh my God, that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
I mean, it's not Battle Beyond the Stars, but,
No. And Battle Beyond the Stars, that was essentially the low budget pay on to Star Wars. And he even did, he took one of George Lucas's things, which was to take Kurosawa films and reinterpret them. So, Star Wars is a reinterpretation somewhat, there's different aspects of films in there, but of Hidden Fortress, which is a Kurosawa film. So Battle Beyond the Stars was a paean to both Star Wars and the Seven Samurai, which was also the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Hey, Peter Venkman, fan site is here. Hello and welcome.
Well, they even had Robert Vaughn, who basically reprised his role from the Magnificent Seven.
Yep, pretty much was the same character. It was a little bit of hokiness to it, the way that there was kind of a little like tongue in cheek of how they presented his character, especially like the little kids coming up to him and going like, "Are you a bad man?" But it was a fun movie, and it was the characters, the actors all did a great job. There was, a sincerity to the performances and what the crew were doing. They all, like I said in the first hour, they all loved doing this stuff. They all wanted to do something that people would enjoy and think was cool. and that shows on the screen. They put every ounce of talent on the screen for that movie. And same with Galaxy of Terror. Galaxy of Terror has some jaw-dropping special effects. And when you look at the opening of Terminator, which I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but you can see all those same techniques, just a little more polished now. They have a little more money and more time to perfect it. James Cameron did direct one movie before Terminator, which came after Galaxy of Terror, which was Piranha 2: The Spawning, notably the greatest flying piranha movie ever made. But unfortunately, and I had Lance Henriksen in it as well. And this is the interesting thing, is along the way, it's not just about the techniques, but it's, the Roger Corman school is, and all this low budget work is meeting and working with people that you will then go into the upper echelons, the higher budget stuff with. And because you've worked together, you know each other, and you all have talked already about how it can be better. So he met Lance Henriksen, I believe, on the set of Piranha 2: The Spawning, was impressed with him. And that movie got taken away from him by a Italian producer who really wanted to just have James Cameron's, James Cameron had already made a name for himself kind of within the industry as this kind of wonderkin that could do this stuff. And I believe the producer used James Cameron's name to get the money, but he really wanted to direct it. So once he had the money and once he had James Cameron, he jettisoned James Cameron and tried to kind of take the glory for himself. I believe James Cameron actually went so far as to break into the editing room at night and re-edit the film when he wasn't there. The director was, or the producer wasn't there. So anyway, but Lance Henriksen, when he did the Terminator, he said to him, like, hey, why don't you come be the Terminator? Which didn't work out. They ended up getting Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they got Lance Henriksen in there as one of the police officers, one of the detectives. They also got, for a very small role, Bill Paxton, who was one of the Roger Corman school set builders at the time. So they knew Bill Paxton in that capacity, and Bill was doing some acting and acted for Roger Corman in some movies as well. And weirdly, here's something that that a lot of people don't know. Bill Paxton wrote the Dr. Demento Fish Head song. Strange factoid. Shinosky says Ridley hates aliens, which is why he's done everything he can to make sure no more elements of it exist. Yeah, well, I mean, I imagine, first of all, he wasn't asked to come back and do aliens, which surprised them. And, I think sometimes when you've got something that you've done that's so successful, you want to continue to dictate where it goes. The fact is, this is my opinion, but James Cameron looked at Alien, saw the logical conclusion, drew a logical conclusion of how that story would go, and gave it a great arc, and probably did something better than Ridley Scott could have come up with on his own. And Ridley Scott, it made Alien what it was. There's no denying that. He did a brilliant job with it, but he can't take full credit for it. He had a script from someone with a couple of writers with a brilliant idea that was then rewritten by a couple of producers who looked at it and knew exactly how to make it just what it needed to be, make it better. And then he got H.R. Giger to make a monster that is unparalleled to this day. So I think it was lightning in a bottle, and it might be a little painful to see another director come in and essentially give you lightning in a bottle again, where, in his mind, it's like, that could have been me, but I don't think he could have done it. And I think, one of the things about the later Ridley Scott movies is they are trying to erase aliens in a way. And that's not the right reason to tell a story. I think that's what went wrong with Alien 3. That's what David Fincher wanted to do. He wanted to erase aliens and go back to what Ridley Scott had done. And it was an abysmal failure on every level. And I know not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but it did make money. It didn't make as much money as Aliens did, and it turned off a lot of people. It wasn't scary. It didn't add anything to the franchise. It was incoherent. The script just didn't make any sense. Even the characters didn't. They contradicted each other on multiple occasions. And, ideas of what character development were just people kind of sitting mopily and telling their backstory, which isn't character development. That's just backstory. And the thing about it that really bugged me more than anything is Ripley, for the first time, doesn't act like Ripley. She's just kind of there, being kind of nihilistic and mopey. And, that may make sense in terms of what she woke up to, but it's still not her. She's not a character anymore. And that's where Alien 3 really loses me.
Well, and the special effects Alien 3 are not anywhere close to on par with Aliens.
Oh, no. I would say the practical effects elements that were like the torn up bishop or the suit were very well done. But then we get into the rod puppet, which a lot of people mistake for CGI, but it is not. It's a rod puppet. It was like the pushing the limits of what photochemical compositing could do. And I applaud them for trying it. I thought the puppet itself was cool. The way it moved, it was a good idea, but not for the time. It's something I would love to see revisited. If there was a way to go in and, I wouldn't bother cleaning up those effects because I don't think the movie itself is worth it. But again, the sets, the artistry, and I've done episodes on this before, but there's so much that could have been done with those sets in that scenario that would have been better, more engaging, more entertaining, more exciting. But, David Fincher kind of came in there with that attitude, just like Ridley Scott did. We're going to undo Aliens. And they just all couldn't understand why audiences loved it so much. But going back to just the progression of James Cameron. So he did Terminator, and yes, I think it was Shinosky that said Harlan Ellison sued him for Terminator because it was an Outer Limits episode he wrote that was very similar, time traveler coming back in time, that tried to talk to cats because they use cats for reconnaissance in the future. I don't think James Cameron stole that idea. I mean, he may have, it's like that thing, what is it, where you see something or you hear something and you kind of subconsciously forget about it and then you vegetate it. That's possible, but it's, I don't know. Lawsuits like that to me are a bit silly. It's like, someone came up with something similar. It happens. I think the only reason to sue over something like that is that you want to get some of the success or get some of the notoriety. I mean, that was a big thing that Harlan Ellison, who's a known egotist, insisted as part of his lawsuit settlement was put my name at the front of the end credits. No, they got him in an interview. I don't know about that. Maybe I'm just speculating. But yeah, Chris talks to cats. Is he from the future? Yes, I am from the future. I am from 30 seconds in the future.
And Bill Paxton, of course, is in both Aliens and Terminator.
Yeah,
he's the only actor to ever be killed by an alien, Predator, and Terminator.
Yep. Lance Henriksen almost has that distinction.
Yeah.
Almost.
He's missing the Predator.
He got killed by a Predator.
Oh, you're right. He did.
In Alien versus Predator.
Yeah. In Alien 3, he's a torn up robot. He wasn't technically killed by an alien. He was only ripped in half by one, and then he got turned off. So sort of. And in Terminator, actually, I guess there's a deleted scene in Terminator where you actually find out he made it. He only got hit, but he wasn't. Yeah, there's a deleted scene. And of course, it's a deleted scene, so it doesn't count. It was implied in Terminator that he was killed by the Terminator, but there's actually a deleted scene where Kyle and Sarah Connor come across him. He's kind of injured, laying against the desk, and tells him, like, go get out of here. Something like that, but it's out there. But we'll say Lance Henriksen is sort of got that distinction as well. But yeah, so Bill Paxton, when it comes to Aliens, he worked on Terminator with Stan Winston, who at the time, Tom Woodruff Jr., who would later become Alec Gillis's partner at Studio ADI, sculpted and puppeteered the Terminator exoskeleton. He didn't puppeteer the shoulder rig, but he did sculpt that, and they puppeteered the face where he's cutting out the eye, and the little wrist, like the metal tendons. They rigged that gag under the table. So they had been working with James Cameron, and then I think James Cameron, I think Alec got an opportunity maybe through, it might have been through James Cameron, to show his portfolio to Stan Winston, and finally got a job for him, which is where he met Tom Woodruff Jr. Was on the set of Was it on the set of Aliens, or was it on the set of Invaders from Mars, the Canon Films remake? But they, anyway, so James Cameron brought all those people in. He brought in the rear projection techniques. He brought in Lance Henriksen, who he'd worked with on Terminator as well. He brought in Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton, saw James Cameron at an airport, and he's like, "Hey, what have you been up to?" He's like, "I'm working on Alien 2. He's like, "Hey, write a scene for me." And then he got to go in an audition. They handed him a poster tube and said, "Here's your, this is your smart gun, And Bill Paxton said, "I think, I left thinking I overacted it. And then I was in my apartment in Venice, and he said, I'd just done Weird Science, and I was cast in a Police Academy movie. I forget which one it was. But his agent called him up and said, like, hey, what is it when something comes out of, in baseball?" He's like, "Left field." He's like, "Yeah, left field." He said, "Yeah, James Cameron's going to call you. He just cast you as a part of Hudson in Aliens." And he said, like, I don't think there was a person in Venice that after I hung up the phone that didn't know that I got the part. So, James Cameron, Lance Henriksen, and then Stan Winston from Terminator, and Alec Gillis, who had worked with him for Roger Corman, and Tom Woodruff. They got put in charge of the creature department. Another person that I tried to get on the show, I've interviewed him before on my own channel, is Rick Lazzarini, who worked on the mechanism for the face hugger. And of course, we talked the other week about the director of Blade, whose name is eluding me all of a sudden. It's right there. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Steve Norrington, who did the chest burster. So there was all this innovative practical effects stuff that Stan Winston was doing. And of course, the Alien Queen, which ended up being the precursor. That's what made Steven Spielberg say, "Hey, can we do this with a dinosaur?" Shanoski says, and Skynet is the exact same character as AM Elad Master Computer, which was created for and did the exact same thing. I'm not familiar with that. Was that in the Outer Limits episode? I can't remember. James, one of the things that James Cameron, and look, everybody is taking elements from everybody else. I mean, this is something that happens. Just looking at George Lucas with Star Wars. I mean, just from like names of characters, shot compositions, lines of dialogue, like it's just constant. Excuse me.
God bless you.
Thank you. Constant borrowing not just to steal, but again, like homage. They love this. They want to get a scene like, I love this shot. I want to get a shot like that in here. Again, Lucas with the World War II fighters for the TIE fighter stuff. Just shots from different Westerns, samurai movies. And James Cameron did the same thing. The atmosphere processor, the shake and bake colony. Thank you, Peter Bakeman Fansite and Dragon Ruse. That is from A Princess of Mars. The John Carter Barsoom series by Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah.
There's the whole climax of the first Princess of Mars
phrasing
is essentially all based on the fact that the atmosphere processor is failing. And that is essentially what Aliens is based around. It's failing in a different way. It's not going to explode in the Princess of Mars novels, but these are things that different science fiction things you read go like, oh, I'm going to take this element, I'm going to take this element. It's kit bashing, just like a lot of what early 80s science fiction was. Science fiction as we know it today owes everything to these fans who wanted to keep this stuff alive. I mean, like I said, George Lucas, when he made Star Wars, science fiction was not a respected. Oh, good morning, Adam. And Adam, if you got the link, feel free to join us. It was not respected. And now this big blockbuster franchise, like everything is science fiction, superheroes, nanotechnology, all of this stuff comes from these pioneers. Ridgetop has got the right account. These executives now that have control over everything, they didn't take the risks. They didn't build this stuff. They just, now that it's big properties, they want to control it. And kind of like, with Piranha 2, The Spawning, okay, we'll have you on another time, Rich Shop. It's the same situation. They get in the thing that attracted everyone to begin with, like James Cameron. And then once they've got the audience's eyeballs, they kick it all out and make it all about them. But they can't fake it. They can't reproduce it. They can't do what these other people have done, and of course we have, James Cameron is still a blockbuster director. Ridley Scott is too, and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. But I think out of all of them, the one that still intrigues me the most, actually, as a person, not as a, I think James Cameron is intriguing, and the difference between homage and ripoff is citation. Cameron tried to hide his. Check out was it Led Zeppelin? They're an even worse case scenario, but it still took that the talent of James Cameron to bring it all together. However you may feel about who they credited or not, I think ultimately is irrelevant to the final product. And that's what audiences understand and what they appreciate. But for me, George Lucas is actually, he's the most interesting because he made his 6 Star Wars movies and then he sold it and he walked away. And whether he regrets walking away or not, I don't know. He's someone I would be very interested to talk to someday. Not so much as, to fanboy out, but to really pick his brain and see where he's coming from these days as an artist, because I don't think he ever gave up on being an artist. And I don't think his intention was to ever be a creator of blockbusters. I think he really loved Star Wars. He really wanted to tell those stories his way. And he did. And not everyone appreciated them. But even the stuff in that people kind of nitpick and criticize, there's good stuff there. I think sometimes people in their rush to criticize it or think that they can do better miss a lot of where he was coming from as an artist and what he was trying to do. And the fact of the matter is that we appreciate the original Star Wars because he took those chances and because he gave us something that we'd never quite seen before. And it's the people in charge of the franchise right now who, like I said, the big problem, this, and I really believe this, is just purely that they look at it and go, oh, yeah, that it was good at the time, but we know better stuff now. We can do better now, without actually understanding why what he did was so good to start. They just see the surface stuff.
And the last 3 Star Wars movies prove that that's the case.
Yeah.
That they don't understand it. But to say this, George Lucas has 5 billion reasons to not regret selling Star Wars.
By the way, Rich Top, I'll read this comment. And I 100% agree with you. I always have love for the prequels. At least they showed us a new side of Star Wars and expanded the universe rather than being a nostalgia retread. Yeah, absolutely. George Lucas really wanted to tell the story. And he, he's even said, like, if you watch them in order of like episode 1 through 6, it becomes a greater story. And people had problems with a lot of prequel stuff. They go, well, it doesn't make sense, or it takes away this from, the original movies because, and it's like, no, it becomes a different story now. And if you watch them in order, the progression absolutely makes sense. And it's, there are little plot holes and things here and there that you might go, wait a minute. But overall, there is a emotional story that is 100% consistent and authentic to George Lucas. And like you were saying, Das Wolfen, the sequels are essentially, people just, again, thinking that they know better than George Lucas and making movies that work to undo what he did in favor of what they thought it should be, even though they don't actually have any real sound, solid idea of what it should be. They just see spaceships and lightsabers and the Force, and they don't understand that Star Wars is not just those things, and it's not even just the philosophy of Star Wars, but it is the ingredients that George Lucas brought, that he cultivated through his love of the cinema that came before. And none of that is there now. J.J. Abrams, who I do actually think is a talented director, but he's, instead of trying to cultivate his own language as a director and as a storyteller, he's just trying to keep up with the things that he's a fan of without really taking the time to understand and appreciate and have some respect for. I don't think he's disrespectful out of any kind of spite. I just think he's kind of gotten ahead of himself and forgotten to have that reference. And I think that's where James Cameron really succeeded with Aliens, was he understood where Alien was coming from. He understood all those things already, and he understood what he could bring to it that would be respectful. So I think, yeah, a lot of these sequels and prequels and all this sort of thing, the big thing that they're all guilty of is abandoning what makes them so good, abandoning using those ingredients. And to a degree, one of my favorite animated movies is Ratatouille, because Ratatouille isn't actually about being a chef. It's about being an outsider who understands how to make great art, and to be in a world that doesn't respect you, wants to squash you, doesn't understand the core elements of what they're supposed to be there for, which is what the whole idea of like what chef, not Linguini. I forget. Rousseau, is that the chef that died that started the restaurant? Was it Rousseau's restaurant? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm not a bit. That's not one of my top Pixar movies.
Well, I love it for this, you know, essentially what it's about. Like I said, Slasher Fred, welcome. If you guys ever see that movie Dark Star, that movie was the inspiration for Alien. Yeah, not only was it the inspiration for Alien, it was the original kind of spark, because it was Dan O'Bannon who wrote Dark Star and also did a lot of the visual effects for it and was an actor in it that he worked with John Carpenter. And Alien came about because Dan O'Bannon said, that was fun, but I'd really like to do that story again and take it more seriously and have a better budget for it. And he pursued it and he wouldn't let it go. And he was relentless. And yeah, you know, people like Dan O'Bannon as well as James Cameron are all that, you know, again, I forget the name of the rat in Ratatouille. I got to go back and watch that. Like I said, I think I love that movie. I can't speak to the full quality of the movie in terms of how it ranks as best Pixar movies, but for me, it really resonates because, again, you know, the end statement of the ego, the film, or not the film critic, the could have been a film critic, the food critic, it was something to the effect of, it's only now I understand Rousseau's statement, anyone can cook. No, not anyone can cook, but a good cook can come from anywhere. And yeah, and that's essentially what we're seeing with filmmaking these days. We have a film industry overall, not entirely, because like I said, there are gems out there. And I will once again say I was thrilled with Megan. I absolutely loved that movie. So, you know, but this is something that artists have to contend with, is that it's an industry filled with people who want the status. They want to be able to say they're a part of it. They want to have full control over it, every aspect of it, and dictate what it should be. But they have forgotten why they're there, if they ever really were there for that reason in the first place, which is to create something that excites them. And the reason that the audience shows up is because you're excited. There's always that, there's a saying that I hear quite often, which is, it's show business, and everyone always thinks about the show, but they forget about the business. And it's like, yes, that's true. And I'll speak to it, the terror from Beyond Space, Slasher Fred, for sure. But also you have to remember that there is no business without the show. We want creators in there who are thinking about the show. We want artists, and we want the business people to support them. These days, you kind of have to be both, and that's very difficult. The business people don't want to support the artists, and the artists don't understand the business. And in between, there are all these people that just want the status, and they don't want to do the work on either side. And that's what we've got. We got writers' rooms filled with those people right now who just think they know better. They think they know what the audience should hear. They think they know what would, you know, the direction that these stories should go in, and what the messaging should be, and how everything should be in service of that message, and blah, 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 blah. And they forgot to have fun. They forgot to go like, look at how cool this spaceship design is. Look at how cool this creature is. You know, it's just, now it's, oh, we need a creature. Give me a bunch of creatures and I'll pick one, and that sort of thing, which George Lucas actually does do. But George Lucas also knows that the artists that he hires are the best, and he loves their work. You know, he handpicks them. He looks at their portfolios and goes, yes, this one, get me this person. I want this person. And that's what James Cameron did. He worked and cultivated that atmosphere with these people. And then once kind of CGI came along and he embraced that technology, he pushed it to the boundaries that it would go to at the time, and did some remarkable stuff, like with Titanic. Starting with The Abyss, and then going on to Terminator 2, and then the Titanic. But now, and this is just my opinion, but now it's the technology has gone so far that it's limitless, so he can do whatever he wants, and so he can make 3-4 hour long movies and then edit them down, and they're essentially cartoons, with some actors in them, and they look great. But I think that's a little bit lost in when you can do anything, you will do anything, and you lose the limitations that you need to kind of push. The term necessity is the mother of invention. Well, he doesn't need to be inventive, at least visually. So what is there to push him? I don't know. I mean, I didn't bother with Avatar 2. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Avatar 2? Yeah, I saw it. I liked it.
You liked it?
I thought it was enjoyable. It wasn't groundbreaking by any sense of the imagination. There wasn't, it didn't have, at least it didn't have the groundbreaking feel that the first Avatar did.
Well, again, he's pushing the 3D. That was like a big thing about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks gorgeous. I mean, the effects, they do look really great, but I mean, all I saw was blue people against blue water, like with some green speckled in there, and it's nice and all, but I mean, did the story really hey, Scribe Light is here, good morning. I mean, do you feel like 20 years from now you're going to be popping in Avatar 2 and feeling excited to watch it in the same way that we pop in Aliens and feel excited to watch it?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I haven't even watched. I don't think I've watched Avatar 1 for a long time.
Yeah, I watched it once, and I went, and I was really excited about it, and I watched it, and I went, "This is it." I mean, it's my feeling was kind of like, I'll liken it to Toy Story. When I first saw Toy Story, and they were, that was groundbreaking. That was the first fully CG feature film. And I watched it and I was like, these graphics are amazing. And the story felt worthy of the graphics, what they had done. It felt like, yes, if you were going to take this chance and make this kind of movie and break ground with visual effects, this is a story worthy of it. When I watched Avatar, I was expecting to get a story that was worthy of these groundbreaking special effects James Cameron had done. And I never really fell into the, it's Dances with Smurfs or Fern Gully all over again or that sort of thing. Like, that didn't matter to me because that should all be secondary. I don't mind if you retread ground, but I had come to expect from James Cameron nothing but the best. And he raised the bar for himself. And Shinosky says the writing still holds up, and that's why Toy Story still matters. Yeah, and Toy Story will always matter. And again, my kids love it. Toy Story 2 is really great as well. I think, if I want to rank my top Pixar movies, it would be the 2 Toy Stories. It would be Up and Ratatouille and Monsters, Inc. probably as well. Bug's Life was really good as well. It just for some reason wasn't as memorable, but that's also Pixar was killing it in the early days. I mean, just they had the magic in the writing, and they knew they wanted to do special movies every time. But it's like, no matter what James Cameron does or how people feel about him or his behavior or what's going on behind the scenes or whatever it is, the fact of the matter is that we can't take away what he accomplished in his early days. And it will probably endure for, there's no way of knowing this, but this is going to be a movie that people are watching 100 years from now and still appreciating, the same way that we watched like 2001: A Space Odyssey. 2001 is over 20 years behind us now and didn't come true at all. But it still holds up in that sense. And that's fantastic. Same with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and I don't know, I'm missing one, but Francis Ford Coppola. It's like Robin said, there's so many layers, and every time you watch this stuff, you see something new, and you're a different person. You've grown older, and you appreciate it for different reasons, and then you get to turn around, and like I said, I've shown Aliens to both my girls. They loved it. And there's always kind of a new perspective based on how you see other people reacting, what their take on it, what their point of view is on it.
Well, I'll say my Pixar movie go-to is always going to be The Incredibles.
It's funny. The Incredibles was one that didn't quite do it for me. I enjoyed it, but
the best Fantastic Four movie ever made.
It was very much the Fantastic Four.
Indeed.
Speaking of aping, they won't be watching it 100 years from now. I'll put money on it. Really dug Avatar: The Way of the Water, 3D IMAX 3D HFR was quite something. Then saw it again in Regal Screen X, which was pretty cool. I thought it set up unique story threads, but most were not revolved. Yeah, I mean, he's making a big budget cinema series, which good for him. I want to see it do well. I was never against it. I don't get it, and I'm kind of surprised it's as successful as it is, but fantastic.
I didn't expect it to hit 2 billion, and it did. So
yeah, I was just gonna say, speaking about The Incredibles, though, talk about a movie that ripped off other people's concepts from different comic books and didn't credit them. The Watchmen. When The Watchmen came out, and they had that segment about the capes, and they're like, The Watchmen ripped off The Incredibles. I was like, no, The Incredibles ripped off The Watchmen.
It's not a rip off; it's an homage.
Well, The Incredibles, essentially, the whole concept of a world where superheroes are banned, is The Watchmen. It's the Fantastic Four meets The Watchmen. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But it's an Aliens Day. Aliens homage in Toy Story when they're in Pizza Planet. The Whack-A-Mole has an astronaut with aliens popping out of him. I thought that was pretty cool. And another recommendation for Aliens fans who like humor, Galaxy Quest. Fantastic movie.
Well, that works for Star Trek fans. Yeah. That works for
sci-fi fans in general.
Yeah.
Star Trek, essentially, for the most part, but it has Sigourney Weaver in it, and there are, she has that line when they're crawling through the ducts. She's like, "Why are there always ducts?" So anyway, I would say that's pretty much all we have to say. I'm sorry we didn't get Alec Gillis and Ridgetop from Aliens vs. Predator Galaxy. I'm sorry you couldn't be on this time, but we'll have you on another time. Definitely want to recommend Aliens vs. Predator Galaxy if you are a fan of either franchise. They have all the news and rumors, and they're very good at kind of verifying stuff. And fantastic channel. Go check out their website, aliensvspredatorgalaxy.com, as well as on their social media. I do believe they have a YouTube. I know they've got a Facebook group, which I absolutely love. I post on all the time. So that is pretty much it. Again, aliens-expanded.com. I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. Let's my mouth's turned itself. Galaxy Quest is great, says Ridgetop. They shot some of that in my neck of the woods in Utah. Ah, yes. Goblin Valley. I want to visit that one day. So thank you to Monkey Jeebus, Ridgetop, D-Bud Martin, Penny, Anima Confusa, Dragon Roost, Sonoski, Deleted Scenes, the Peter Vigman fan site, and Scribe Light, my neighbor on the moon. Thank you for finally cutting your lawn. The HOA appreciates it. Slasher Fred. And of course, thank you to Das Wolfen and Martin for being my panelists.
Be sure to hit that like button.
Like, subscribe. Thank you to KGRA and Fuel Up. And so, Aliens Expanded. Looking forward to it. And that's it from me. See you next Tuesday.